Hey guys, it's me, Juju, coming to you live this evening from my living room. Thank you guys for joining me. Come on in and join us as you come in. Please like and share the video. Like and share the video, tag a friend, let them know that Juju is on the air. Also, let me know that you're here. Tell me hello, give me a wave, tell me hello, let me know that you are watching and that you're looking forward to a great discussion tonight. So, as you guys come in, hello, Miss Darlene Todd. How are you doing, doll? Please like and share the video. As you guys come in, I just want to show you um, what I have going on this right now. These are my um, Juju by Juju for You sets. I have the ruffle hat with the matching flip flops. The ruffle hat with the matching flip flops. And these are going to be perfect for the summer, perfect beach wear. And you can get them in any color, any size. Just let me know. Don't wait too late now. Don't wait till you're on your way to your trip, your vacation, or on your way to the beach to request yours and to order yours. So come on and place your order today. Just messenger me, Ardine Thomas, and we will get those ruffle hat and flip flop sets ready for you. So, how's everyone doing tonight, doll? I'm glad that you're doing good. Thank you for joining as usual. You're always here supporting. So, guys, come on in, and as you come in, please like and share the video. Let me know that you're here with us. Let me know that you are here, that you have joined. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. Tonight, we're talking about toxic relationships, and that is something I think a lot of people know about. A lot of people have probably experienced. Hello, Nikki. Hello, how are you doing, Miss Radford? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining. Rodriguez, thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. We're going to talk about these toxic relationships, okay? We're going to talk about toxic relationships. Remember, guys, please like and share the video. Like and share the video and tag your friends. Let them know that Juju is on the air. Hello, Miss Demetria Jones. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much. Of course, I am Juju and I am your host. I'm coming to you guys live from my living room. Let's Talk is produced by my brother and dear friend, Mr. Jerry L. Jackson. I don't see Jerry yet, but I'm sure he'll join us as soon as he's gets in a place. Hello, my Jasmine Taz. How are you doing? Um, Thank you, Tamika. Thank you. I do my best. Okay. So anyway, so tonight we're talking about toxic relationships. And first of all, we want to know what is a toxic relationship. And I know when we say toxic relationships, we think about romantic encounters, but toxic relationships can be a relationship with anyone that you have. It can be a romantic encounter, it can be family, children and their parents, it can be between siblings, it can be between friends. You can have toxic friends, it can be co-workers or toxic co-workers. You can have toxic relationships with anyone really that you have a personal encounter with. And so a toxic relationship is an unhealthy connection where negative behaviors, lack of support, and emotional harm outweigh positive interactions. It drains one's energy and well being. Toxic relationships occur when two people fail to communicate or relate in healthy ways, often resulting in conflict, manipulation, or emotional harm. In such relationships, at least one person may ex- minimize the other person's perspective. They may exert control or engage in competitive or manipulative behaviors, leaving the other partner feeling unsupported, misunderstood, or demeaned. Toxic dynamics can appear in romantic, platonic, or familiar relationships and may include emotional, verbal, and even physical abuse. And so I want us to remember, hello, Miss Donina Kindred, how are you doing? I want us to remember that these toxic relationships are often the behaviors that are exhibited in toxic relationships are often learned behaviors. And so they really stem from a lot of times a, a person's upbringing. So if you are born into a situation where I know families who they communicate by yelling at each other, and you're like, "Oh, can we just show some love? Can we just everybody calm down and talk in a temperate voice and not just yelling and fussing all the time?" But that's how they communicate. And that child learns that behavior, and when they go onto the workplace, when they have friendships, when they have romantic relationships, they exhibit that behavior because that's what they learn. A lot of times, when a young girl grows up in a household where her father is abusive to her mother, then she learns that that is love. That's what love does. It fights and it carries on. And so when she gets into a relationship, she's looking for somebody like her father. Believe it or not, she's looking for someone that's going to abuse her because she doesn't think if he's not hitting her or demeaning her or disrespecting her, then he doesn't love her. And same thing with a young man. If he sees his father acting out in that way, and please know, I know that it can be reversed too. Women can be abusive, they can be the abusers. But if they see um their father abusing their mother, then when they get into a relationship, they feel like that's what a relationship would look like. And so they take those toxic behaviors that they have learned as a child and they carry them with them into their adult relationships. And they are, like I said, they are abusive to not only their partners, but they are abusive to their friends, they're abusive to their coworkers, because that is the language, that's how they have learned to communicate. And so we have to be very mindful of the atmosphere that we set for our children when we are rearing our children. Make sure that your children are growing up in a loving relationship where they're being built up, their self-esteem is being built up, they're being reassured, they're being taught to be confident and strong, and not to demean others, not to bully others, not to put down others, not to allow others to demean, bully, and put them down. Realizing that that is not the type of relationship that is healthy. So we have to teach these healthy behaviors if we want the children to exhibit these healthy behaviors when they grow up. I hear people telling their kids, "Oh, you're so stupid. Stop being acting so stupid. You're so dumb." And they don't really mean that most of the time. They're just saying it. and acting, speaking out of frustration, but the child is taking it in, so they have low self-esteem. So when they get into relation with other people, they think that they're stupid and they're dumb, so they allow the person that they're in a relationship, whether it's a friend, a coworker, or whatever, to manipulate them. Or you ain't no good, you just like a no good daddy. So I'm no good. So if people are treating me bad, I deserve it because I'm no good. So most of the time, the toxic behaviors that people display as they grow up and as they mature and as they matriculate through life, they are learned as children. So be mindful of how you deal with your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, all the things that you say and do to them, they carry with them throughout their life. So um, remember that as you are dealing with people. Now, as we have listened to the definition of a toxic relationship, this is an icebreaker question. This is just kind of fun. We're not even gonna get into the whole political scene tonight, but I just thought that this was a good icebreaker question that I want you guys out there to answer for me. Is America in a toxic relationship with its president? What do you guys think? Is America in a toxic relationship with its president? Let me know what you're thinking out there. Let me know what you are thinking out there. Let's break the ice, have on this little fun question because this is a kind of deep conversation. Do you think we're in a toxic relationship with our president? Janet Thomas says yes. Yes. And we're gonna talk about the different kind of uh um characteristics of those that exhibit toxic behavior, and there's one that is the narcissistic type, and I think, okay, we know about that. Darlene Todd says yes, yes, we are in a toxic relationship with an abusive president who is out to hurt and manipulate and lie and all of these good things. So, but anyway, so we're going to Rodriguez Barnes says yes. So I think the consensus is and Tamika says absolutely. So I think the general consensus is yes, we are in a toxic relationship. Okay. So the characteristics of a toxic relationship include lack of support. One or both partners fail to encourage or validate the other's feelings and goals. They dismiss, what you think, your little feelings, your little goals, or um, your little thoughts, your little plans. They don't, just very dismissive of what the partner is, what the other person is thinking about. Manipulation and control, attempts to dominate decisions, dictate behaviors, and create dependency. They want their partner to be dependent on them, so they attempt to dominate them and dictate their behaviors, because if they can do that, then the person can be um, dictatorship behavior. Exactly, Tamika. They distribute those dictator. You do what I say. It's what I say. What I say goes. I'm the HINC, and you gonna do what I do. Is my way or the highway. Emotional harm, frequent criticism. You can't get anything right. Sarcasm, gaslighting, belittling that undermines a person's self-esteem, laughing at the things that you do, making fun of you, belittling the things that you do, not celebrating your accomplishments. Nothing is ever good enough. Tearing down your self-esteem. Oh, if you make a mistake, they want to amplify that mistake, turn a mountain, a molehill into a mountain. Just creating, just brick by brick, tearing down your self-esteem, where you get to the point where you feel like you're worthless and you don't deserve any better. I can't do any better. This is what I deserve. This is what I can do. This is the most I can give. This is the best that I can have. And I deserve this because I'm less than, and I'm not good enough. We have to realize that we are enough. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you're not enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not the right size, you're not rich enough, you're not healthy enough, whatever, tall enough, you're not short enough, your hair's not long enough, all these kind of things that people put into your mind. You're not holy enough, whatever that they may say. Realize that you are wonderfully and fearfully made, and you were more than enough when God made you. Okay, so remember that at all times. Imbalance of power. One partner consistently holds more control, leading to resentment or fear. The one thing that my mother always told her girls is make sure you can take care of yourself. And if you have children, make sure you can take care of yourself and your children, because if a person thinks you need them, that's when they start acting crazy. And she would add a little bit more into that. But Janet, you know what her favorite phrase was, because of ain't. So we're not gonna say that tonight, but we know what that was. But make sure that you don't surrender your complete control to anybody. You don't totally give up yourself, your own values, your own self-worth, your own thoughts, your dreams. Don't give that stuff up to anybody. You hold on to that, and then you allow have someone who is going to encourage you in that, and you all work together to build up those dreams. But it shouldn't be where I'm totally dependent on you for my livelihood, for my well-being, for my anything, because that can uh that can lead to senses of resentment. But one thing we have seen is when a person has power, if they feel like they have power, power corrupts. And absolute power absolutely corrupts. And so if a person feel like they have absolute power over you, it is a corrupting thing. Okay? And they can be a good person and then feel like, okay, now I can manipulate this person, I can manipulate this situation, whatever. But anyway, persistent negativity, conflicts, jealousy, mistrust, and resentment, and dominates interactions, outweighing positive experiences. So the person is, there's constant chaos, constant conflicts, constant negativity, constant bickering and fighting. And it just outweighs all that is good in a relationship. Toxic relationships can be intentional. You have some people who intend to do harm, and sometimes it can be unintentional. Like I said, with parents, sometimes they create a toxic atmosphere unintentionally, and they harm their children's self-esteem unintentionally. So it can be intentional or it can be unintentional. Sometimes it's stems from learned behaviors, like I said, what we've learned in the childhood, unresolved personal issues. While some relationships may improve with effort, self-awareness, therapy, others may be irreparably harmful, and make it important for us to recognize the signs and take the steps to protect our emotional health and sometimes even our physical health. So, even there's nothing that's irreparable, but it doesn't repair itself. If you're in a toxic relationship and you feel like you want to salvage this relationship, it's going to take work. And both persons that are involved in the relationship are going to have to want to change the dynamics in the relationship. Oftentimes, if there's a person that's in control or they're the controlling person, they don't want to change the dynamics of the relationship because they like being, okay, the one in power. And in those instances, you need to walk away. And the sooner, the better. If you find out that somebody is toxic and they don't want to change, as soon as you find out that, walk away, nip it in the bud, cut them loose. Because the longer you stay in the toxic relationship, the more power the person feels like they have, the more dominant they want to become, the more negative your experiences are. If they're abusive, the more intense the abuse is going to become. So, you need to nip that in the bud. If they are toxic, they're giving off toxic energy, and they don't want to change. And even those who say, "Oh, I'm going to change, I want to change," but put forth no effort to change, yeah, nip it in the bud, because you don't deserve to be in a toxic relationship. All of us deserve healthy, meaningful, productive relationships that build us up, that encourages us, that help us to be the best versions of ourselves that we can possibly be. All of us deserve that. Point blank, period. Full stop. Alrighty, so the common types of what are the common types? Let's go to a question first. Um, our first question is, how do family or community dynamics influence relationship patterns? How do your family dynamics or your community dynamics influence relationship patterns? Have you seen that in people, that they repeat the behaviors that they see in their family or in their community, the dynamics? Does poverty have an impact on family dynamics, on relationship patterns? Does the fact that they're not a lot of maybe fathers in homes, does that influence relationship patterns? How do your family or your community influence relationship patterns? Any comments, any thoughts on that, on how our family or our community influence our relationship patterns? I was talking about that, talking about how we repeat learned behavior. Just like you may see generational poverty, where one person's parent was in poverty, they maybe lived in public housing, they may have been receiving food assistance, they may not have worked on a consistent basis, and then that their children learn that behavior and they do the same thing, and then their children's children will learn that behavior, they do the same thing, the people in the community around you are doing that, are doing that same thing. So the what we see in our community is our reality. What we see in our family is our reality, and that's what we know. And we shouldn't really get angry with people for mimicking the behavior that they have learned. Things that are learned can be unlearned, but it takes practice, it takes time, it takes work. And so that is what we have to do when we see that people have learned bad behaviors or they have learned toxic behaviors, then we have to, if we want it, what it takes for them to not repeat those behaviors is someone to come in and help them to unlearn those behaviors. Okay, Tamika has said people tend to mimic the behaviors and patterns that they saw in the household growing up when they start a family. Exactly. This is the way mama did it. This is the way daddy did it. This is the way we did it in my house. I know I say it all the time. My family dynamics may have been different from your family dynamics, but no, that don't make no sense to me because in Margaret Thomas' house, you wasn't doing that. Or in Margaret Thomas' house, we did it this way. Or and it doesn't mean it's right, but it's just what I know. Okay, and I'm going to practice what I know, and other people are going to practice and mimic the behaviors, like you said, Tamika, that they know. And if they have learned these behaviors as a child, they're going to continue with those behaviors unless somewhere along the way they unlearn those behaviors. um what factors, past trauma, insecurity, environment, can contribute to toxic behavior? What factors? And like I said, if a child has come out of an abusive situation, they're going to more than likely be either an abuser or be susceptible to being abused. They're going to have that toxic behavior. Because when we think about toxic behavior, we think about the abuser and they are exhibiting toxic behavior, but it's toxic behavior for you to allow someone to abuse you or to mistreat you, for you to stay in a relationship or a friendship or on a job or at a church where you're constantly being abused and put down, belittled, threatened, having your self esteem demeaned. That is toxic behavior as well. If you're allowing yourself to be bullied, that's toxic behavior, and that behavior is learned from childhood. uh a lot of times it's learned from our childhood. Hello, Michael France, how you doing, friend? Haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for joining us tonight. So yeah, so the dynamics of a household when a child is growing up contributes greatly to whether or not that child will exhibit toxic behaviors or will allow themselves to be mistreated by someone who is exhibiting these toxic behaviors. So let's look at some of the types of toxic relationships, okay? Let's look at those. Okay, first of all, what we think about when we think about a toxic relationships, we think about abusive relationships. These involve physical, emotional, verbal, or sexual abuse. One partner exerts power and control over the other, often leaving the victim feeling trapped, fearful, or powerless. Abuse can be overt or subtle, and it can occur in romantic, familiar, or professional settings. So we know, and that's what we think about when we think about the toxic relationships. That is the one we think about the most, the abusive relationship. And it's not always physical abuse. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's emotional abuse, or it's verbal abuse. A lot of times it's verbal abuse. Verbal abuse usually accompanies the physical abuse, the sexual abuse. the emotional abuse. You're so stupid, you so dumb, you can't do nothing right, you can't cook when you wash these clothes, you ruin these clothes, your mama didn't teach you nothing. You know, you hear all of this, you're worthless, you're good for nothing, nobody wants you. You know, you can't do anything right. All these kind of things, the verbal abuse that comes from a toxic relationship. And then, of course, there's the physical abuse. And like I said, to me personally, if a person exhibits physical abuse at the first time, that's a definitely no for me. A definite no. I tell my girls that all the time. I say at the first sign of physical abuse, leave, cause you don't want to see your Aunt G in jail. I'm old now. I'm too old to go to prison. Okay, because usually that physical abuse doesn't get better. It gets worse. And if someone is sexually abusing you, then definitely that's a no-brainer. Because that behavior generally is not going to change. With even with counseling and all this stuff, you have anger management and all this stuff, and maybe you want to invest in that and try that. But for me, it's a no-brainer. At the first sign of any physical, sexual abuse, anything like that, I'm done. And that's what I would advise my son or my daughter. If my son was involved with a girl, because what I say is grown people don't solve their relationship with violence. That's not how adults, grown people, who are supposed to be civilized, resolve issues. They don't resolve it with hitting each other. Little kids fight. Grown people don't do that. And so if I got to hit you or you got to hit me, then it's time for us to say goodbye. That's how I feel about that. Um, but everybody's relationship is their own. So, but what I will say is be very careful with that. Be very mindful. If someone physically abuses you, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to stop, and it's only going to intensify. And a lot of times it ends very tragically. Um, Darlene Todd said, "Me too, Juju." Yeah, I never been in a situation where anybody, physically abused me, because no, we're not gonna do that. All right, the next type is the narcissistic relationship. One partner displays traits of narcissistic personality disorder, such as lack of empathy. They don't care. Okay, well, it's all right. Constant need for admiration. They don't care nothing about you, but you got to always praise them. You got to tell them how great they are, how wonderful they did, how they're just superfluous. You know, and they're dismissive to others' feelings. Okay, well, you hurt my feelings. What you said, I didn't. What you shouldn't be so sensitive. Those kind of things. These relationships often leave the non-narcissistic partner feeling undervalued and emotionally drained, because you're constantly trying to build someone up and they're constantly tearing you down, or just not valuing you at all, not valuing your feelings, uh not empathizing with how you're feeling. That is that narcissistic relationship. The controlling relationship. A controlling partner dictates the other's actions, decisions, and social interactions. Be careful, often isolating them from friends and family. This dynamic erodes autonomy and can involve monitoring, manipulation, and coercion. Those controlling, when you see people start trying to cut you off from your family and friends, that's a sign. When they're trying to isolate you, that's a sign that that's a toxic relationship. They want you to yourself. They don't want you around anybody who may say anything about, that may build you up or may inspire you or may even make you aware of what they're doing. And then a lot of times that controlling relationship is the precursor to the abusive relationship. They isolate you from your family and friends. Once they've got you isolated, then they start abusing, physically, verbally, emotionally. They start that. So be careful when you see the signs of any of these things. There are signs that you need to either get help in the relationship or leave the relationship, whatever that relationship may be. Manipulative relationship. Manipulative manipulation includes guilt trip, lying, gaslighting, or emotional blackmail. The manipulator twists situations to their advantage, leaving the other person confused, powerless, or doubting their own judgment. You know, and sometimes when the manipulative relationship, I it seems sometimes that's the maybe who you may look at and see is the not the dominant in the relationship, but the submissive. But the submissive manipulates the dominant in the relationship with guilt tripping and gaslighting and emotional blackmail. You did this to me. You made me feel this way. You always hurt me. You don't care nothing about me. I'm sad. I'm mad. I'm lonely. I'm hurt. And this is the constant relationship. So even though they feel like, or you may look at the relationship and say, okay, this is the dominant in the relationship, this is the submissive, but really the submissive is controlling the dominant through their manipulation. And so that is one thing to be mindful of as well. Even though you may feel like you're the strong person, you can be being manipulated in a relationship. Codependent relationships. Both individuals rely excessively on each other. They feed off each other for emotional support or validation. Boundaries are weak, and one or both partners may sacrifice their needs, leading to loss of identity and the imbalance in relationship. We just feeding off each other, and both of us are giving off negative vibes. Psychopath, a sociopath relationship. If you're in a relationship with a psychopath or a sociopath, get out now. Okay? Sociopath, psychopath don't change. Okay? They don't change. So exit. So um, if you see these being exhibited, go away. These involve partners who exhibit antisocial traits such as deceit, lack of remorse, and exploitation. Such relationships are highly toxic and emotionally and physically damaging. So, if you have a person who has no remorse for anything that they do, it's never their problem, they exploit in the situation, get out. There ain't no hope for that relationship. Go, leave. Whatever that is. If you're dealing with a sociopath or a psychopath, they're not going to change. Scorecard or competitive relationship. I see this all the time. Partners keeping track of perceived wrong or achievements, creating resentment and constant comparison. This dynamic fosters conflict and undermines trust. I see it. People say, well, Back then I did okay, let's forget about what happened back then. If you're trying to build a relationship now, you can't keep going back to back then where he did something or she said something back then and I gave her $100 or I bought her a car or I did okay, the scorekeeping relationship. And you see that a lot, not just in marriages or intimate relationships. You see that a lot in friendships. You see that a lot in family dynamics between siblings. That scorekeeping. don't don't be a scorekeeper. Okay, don't be a scorekeeper. If you're gonna do something for somebody, go ahead and do it and just keep moving. If you're gonna loan somebody something, loan it to them and keep moving. Don't keep on talking about I gave them this and they never did pay me back and they still owe me $200. I loaned them in 1992. All right, Parenting 911 says just imagine the trauma left on children raised in these toxic home environments. Exactly, Parenting 911. And that's what I was saying. Most of these toxic behaviors are learned behaviors that children learn from their parents or from their home, from the environment that they were raised in. And either they learn to be a victim or they learn to be victimized in these toxic households, um, in these toxic environments. Emotional roller coaster relationships characterized by extreme highs and extreme lows. You got a manic depressive relationship. One day y'all are in love, so in love with each other. Next day you can't stand each other. You hate each other. You're fighting, you're fussing, you're cussing. Then the next day you're all back in love again, and it's up and down and up and down. I don't see how people do that, but some people love that kind of relationship. But that is a toxic relationship if you're on that emotional roller coaster going up and down and up and down and up and down. Mutual assured destruction relationships. Both partners engage in harmful behavior that escalate conflicts, creating a cycle of retaliation and emotional harm. And that's what I said. Sometimes a lot of times we want to think about the man as the victimizer, but there are some cases when women and men both are mutually destructive in a relationship. We not good for each other. Period. We bring out. You've heard the saying. We bring out the worst in each other. Yeah. Sometimes people bring out the worst in each other, and they have a mutually assured destructive relationship. Downward spiraling relationships. Partners reinforce each other's negative behavior, such as substance abuse or self-destructive behavior, worsening overall well-being. And a lot of times that is the situation with all of these type of relationships. If you don't get help or if you don't walk away from the relationship, it only gets worse. It does not just automatically gets better and it doesn't stay on a level plane. Most of them are downward spiraling. But you can have like relationships. I think of those as codependent relationships too when you have two drug addicts when we getting high together, two alcoholics, we gonna go out and we gonna enjoy and we just gonna get drunk together. Or we are maybe we Bonnie and Clyde, we gonna go rob people together. We getting high off of that kind of situation. And it's just mutually destructive for yeah, it is a downward spiral relationship and it just gets worse, worse, worse. Never ending bickering or power struggle relationships. And sometimes I am going to admit I have to put people on pause, and I just put them on pause and say, okay, I'm not gonna talk to them because I'm tired of arguing with them every day, all day, every day. So we just gonna put them on pause, and I get back to them later on when maybe we can I can I have more strength to deal with them. So I'm gonna put them on pause for a while. But it's a constant argument, criticism, or competitions, dominate the relationship, preventing healthy communications and emotional safety. So yeah, when you're in that power struggle and you're constantly bickering, and I want to be the dominant, no, I want to be the dominant. Nobody, we can't be equal. Somebody's got to be dominant. Somebody got to be the submissive, and we just constantly, yeah. And so yeah, I have, like I said, I put friendships mostly just put that on pause, put that friendship over there, handle them from a long handle spoon because I can't with you. And this ain't good for anybody. How do power imbalances, emotional, financial, affect relationship toxicity? How does power imbalances? If I have all the money in the relationship and you have to come to me and ask me, maybe I'm giving you an allowance or whatever you got, but you have to come to me and ask me for everything that you need. Or what if I'm just the strong one and you're always needy, you're always emotionally needy, you're always insecure, and I have to constantly build you up, try to build up your self esteem. I have to always reassure you that everything is all right. Oh no, you're the man that I want. I don't want nobody else. You're perfect. And you just constantly, I got to constantly build you up. How does those power imbalances affect relationship toxicity? How does that? Because I just feel like there comes a point when you just get tired of it. Okay, I'm tired of always having to pull you up. You always depressed, you always stressed, you always weak. I got to pull you up. Or I'm taking care of you, you're not contributing anything to the relationship. I have to go to work every day. I'm paying somebody to take care of the house. I'm buying your car, buying your food, buying your clothes. You're not contributing anything to the relationship. That gets old. That gets old. And like I said, my mama told her daughters, especially, I guess she knew she just expected that the sons wouldn't know that they have to take care of themselves. But she told her daughters and her granddaughters, be able to take care of yourself. Because when someone feels like they have to take care of you, you're dependent on them, and that's when they start acting crazy. She said, you know, what she said. But so those power imbalances can lead to toxic behavior. And like I said, when you feel like you have absolute power over somebody, they can't do anything without me, then that gives you a sense of entitlement that leads to toxic behavior. If I'm paying all the bills in the house, then I have the right to say whatever I want to say, whatever I say, go, because I'm paying all the bills. If I tell you not to get in my car, you walk. Whatever, you know. So those power imbalances can lead to toxicity in relationships. So let me ask you guys this question. Why do some people stay in toxic relationships even when they recognize the harm? Why do some people stay in toxic relationships even when they recognize the harm? What do you guys think? And I look at people in toxic relationships like Miss Frizelma said, and they have children. And they recognize the harm that it's doing to them. They recognize the harm that it's doing to their children. However, they choose to stay in those relationships. Why? Anybody got any thoughts on the why? Anybody been through that type of situation and have a personal why I stayed as long as I stayed? Michael France said they are afraid to leave. Yeah, they're afraid to leave. Sometimes, Duchess Thomas says sometimes people think they can't do any better. And Michael France says sometimes they're afraid to leave for the kids. They're afraid to step out on their own, Duchess says. Um, so the fear keeps them there. Parenting one 911. This looks like love to them. Wow. So they have learned that love is that abusive is love when they were growing up. So it looks like this is what love's supposed to look like. This is what a family is supposed to look like. This is what a husband and a wife or a family, this is the dynamics, this is the way it's supposed to be. That's very interesting. Looks like love to to them. Darlene Todd says, my dad always taught me to take care of myself and not to depend on anyone. I'm very independent. Yeah, we all need to be able to take care of ourselves. And parenting 911, you said looks like love to them. So how do you convince a person that when it looks like love, or even when they're afraid, there's fear that they can do it, or that this isn't what love really is supposed to be? How do you convince them that this is not a good situation, that you can do better, that you don't deserve this, that your kids don't deserve this, that this is not what love is? Love doesn't hurt like this. How do you show them these things? How do you convince them of these things? Janet Thomas says sometimes religion plays a part in it. And Janet Thomas, you're right. You see people, um, I know you guys all probably saw the situation in Montgomery where the young pastor's wife shot and killed him. And they were in a toxic relationship. One of my good friends were good friends with the minister. They were in a toxic relationship and they knew it was unhealthy. He knew it was unhealthy. The I guess the wife knew it was unhealthy. He was a pastor of the church. The people at the church was telling him that if you divorce your wife, then you can't be pastor of our church. You're going to lose our church because we can't have a divorcee as our pastor. So you're right, Janet. Sometimes religion does play a part in it. Um, for me, I use the scripture. For you, you use the scripture to encourage people, to try to teach them who God says that they are and realize that you are who God says you are, not who man says you are. Okay. Okay. Um, how can the toxic relationships, especially with children, affect someone's self-esteem and mental health, especially children growing up in toxic relationships. It can affect adults too, because they get to a point where they are sometimes have been so verbally and emotionally abused until they have zero self-esteem. But when a child is growing up in a toxic relationship, uh, uh, parenting 911, how does that impact that child's self-esteem when they're growing up in that toxic relationship, in that toxic environment? Their parent, some people, and it's not even abuse. Like I said, sometimes I know families who they don't speak to each other in a calm tone. Even it's always snapping and hollering at each other, and it's not even name calling. They're not even name calling, but they just communicate with such aggression, and it's and you be like, okay, can we just have a nice, calm, I ask you a question and you don't bite my head off type of situation? So how does that impact a child's self-esteem when they are growing up in a toxic relationship like that? Parenting 911 says they become afraid. They have low self esteem, low confidence, lack of social skills. Okay. So they're afraid to even speak up for themselves or to even talk to anyone. Okay. And Darlene said children are small or smart. They know they know what's going on. It affects the child. Yes, it does. Everything that goes on in a child's environment impacts them in some way, positively or negatively. And so, as parents and as aunties and grandparents and teachers and whatever, we need to create environments that are going to positively impact the child as much as possible. Things are going to happen that are going to be negative, and we're going to have to deal with those and teach our children how to deal with those. But we need to create as much as possible positive environments for our children. And sometimes that means we got to walk away from some people. Yes, it does affect their development. Yes, that's parenting 911. It does indeed affect their development. Can a toxic relationship become healthy? Can a toxic relationship, what do you guys think? Can a toxic relationship become healthy? I think so, but I think that it has to be a situation where both people involved or everyone involved in the relationship have to want for it to become healthy. That's first thing, because if I want to change the relationship and you don't want to change the relationship, then it's not going to change. Okay, so both of us have to want for the relationship to change, and you got to put in work. You got to admit your part in the toxic atmosphere that's being created. I have to admit what I'm doing wrong. You have to admit what you're doing wrong. And then you have to be willing. You got to do some talking. You got to be doing some listening. Sometimes it may take a professional, a third party that is objective to come in and to say, okay, this is what I see. And do you hear what this person is saying? Do you really hear? Are you really actively listening to what they're saying on both parts? But it takes a lot of work. If you want to change a toxic relationship, both must be committed in healing. Exactly. Both people got to have to be committed in the healing. Darlene said it depends on what The problem is, this is true because, like I said, some things are a no, I don't want to deal with you anymore. At the first sign, if you are physically abusive to me, if you put your hand, that's it, I'm done. Or if you are, like you say, they talk about sexual abuse. If you, we're done. We don't need to try to fix that relationship. We don't need to try to fix that relationship. Um, Willie Moss says he thinks that self-esteem plays a big part in relationships. It does in everybody's relationship. Um, Michael France said they may need counseling to get there. Exactly. You may need that third party to get you to where you're going. They definitely need counseling and therapy. Okay, so parenting 911, you said they definitely need counseling and therapy. If you are a person who has a low self esteem, yeah, you're gonna need that to counseling to bring you up. Oh, it is 8 o'clock, guys. I have gotten. Thank y'all so much. We've gotten in such a good little conversation till I have the time has passed. But anyway, um let me give you some coping and moving forward. You need to set clear boundaries and communicate your needs. Seek support for friends, family, or therapists. Consider distancing yourself or ending the relationship if toxicity persists, and focus on self care and rebuilding autonomy and self esteem. But anyway, understanding these types can help you identify toxic dynamics early and take steps to maintain healthier, more fulfilling relationships. And that is a key to identify those toxic relationships early, because, like I said, they only get worse. They don't get better by themselves. All righty, announcements right quick. March 29th, that's next Sunday. We're springing into gardening with Dr. Edgar Vincent. So if you have questions about your spring garden, your flower garden, your vegetable garden, get them all ready for next week. We're going to have with us Dr. Edgar Vincent, and he's going to be answering all of your gardening questions. You welcome, Janet. You are so welcome. Y'all don't forget to shop by Juju for you for all your crochet needs. Like I said, this is my summer creation, guys. Get your bucket hat and your matching flops and get ready for the beach. Don't wait too late. Don't wait till you're on your way for the trip. Or don't wait till I got 10 people ahead of you. Go ahead and get your orders in. Huddle and Let's Talk will have a voter registration and restoration event Monday, April the 26th, from 12 to 2 at St. Luke AME Church. Some important election dates. The primary election in Alabama is May 19th. The last day to register to vote is May the 4th. The May the 12th is the last day to apply for an absentee ballot in the mail. May the 14th is the last day to apply for an absentee ballot in person. To deliver your absentee ballot in person, the last day is May 18th, and the absentee ballot must be received if it's mailed by noon on May 19th. Georgia primary election is May the 19th as well. The last day to register in Georgia for their primary election is April the 20th. Okay, so remember those dates. Don't forget that March 28th is the National No Kings rally. There will be a protest in Lee County, um at Toomer's Corner in Auburn. I got to get the time for you guys. I have that next week. April 4th, Walking with a Purpose 100 Youth Walk starts at 10 a.m. You'll be walking from Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, and it will end at the Covington Recreation. For more information about the 1,000 Youth Walk, please contact Tony Baker at 334-740-1949. Also, April 4th, 2026, 3 o'clock p.m. at the Opelika Public Library. Parenting 911 citywide event calling all parents. This session will be talking about rebuilding family trust. So it kind of uh, dovetails out of what we've been talking about tonight, rebuilding family trust. Um, Juju, me, hey, will have the honor of being one of the guest presenters, along with my pastor, the Reverend Monique Summers. She's the pastor of St. Luke AME Church here in Opelika, and also Dr. Angela Nelms Griffin will also be a panelist. And of course, Miss Frizzell Malin is the founder of Parenting 911, and she will be there always with some great advice for parents. And we all need that in this age, because it's a tough age for children growing up and for parents raising children. Don't forget, on May 16th, Nazareth Baptist Church will be having this prayer breakfast, and Juju and Mr. Jackson will be the guest speakers for that prayer breakfast. I'm going to get that time. Janet Thomas, if you're still on here, can you put that time in the chat for me? What time does that prayer breakfast start? So we'll all know. And that's May 16th at Nazareth Baptist Church. And we're looking forward to both events. We're looking forward to the Parenting 911 event and the prayer breakfast at Nazareth. Anytime we have an opportunity to share with the community um, in the way that the Lord has blessed us, and with any kind of information to encourage and uplift, it's an honor to be asked to do so. Don't forget, Juneteenth coming up, St. Luke AME Church, 5th annual Juneteenth celebration, June 27th from 4 to 7 p.m. at St. Luke. Of course, we're looking for our vendors, we're looking for our sponsors, we're looking for our entertainment. Contact me, Duchess Thomas, Jerry Jackson, Pastor Monique Summers, or Althea Ashford for more information. We're going to get all that information out, and we're going to start putting it out on social media platforms. The prayer breakfast starts at 9 o'clock a.m. Thank you, Janet. 9 o'clock a.m. on May the 16th. So don't miss it. Be there. Contact Duchess Thomas for all of your Mary Kay needs. She'll get that face all beat up. And then, and don't forget to subscribe to the Dollhouse YouTube channel. You can catch up on all of your editions of Let's Talk, and then you can see things that are going on with By Juju for you. Thank you guys so much. I have overstayed my time, but I have enjoyed our conversation tonight. I am Juju. I am that mountain moving giant slayer. Guys, I'm walking by faith. I'm inspiring hope, and I am showing love all along the way. Until next time, I wish you all much love and many blessings. Good night.